When two JavaScript developers discuss a subject related to work, sometimes you might hear the word iterable being mentioned. But what exactly does iterable mean? Well, in JavaScript, an iterable is any data type that can be iterated over using a for-of loop. Some of the data types you can iterate over are arrays and strings. In this video, you will learn about the array characteristics of strings, and you will also explore further string manipulation using the concatenation operator. In the world of JavaScript, it can often be said that strings behave like arrays, as strings are array-like. For example, you can run a for loop over an array of letters and output the result using the console.log method. Additionally, you can also run a for loop over a string. For example, loop over the string ABC to output the letters individually. Okay, let me demonstrate this now with some code examples. In the file I have open in my console, I have a variable veggies, which has an array with 3 strings. Each string holds the name of a vegetable, specifically onion, parsley, and carrot. I've typed a console log for veggies.length, which will return the number of array items. I also have console logs for the first and second items of the array, using the indexes 0 and 1 respectively. And finally, I have an example of a for loop that sets the counter of I to 0. The exit condition for this loop is that the comparison of I is less than veggies length, returns false, and I++ is the value to increment on each loop. Inside the for loop, I'm console logging the veggies at the index of I. When I run this code, I get a 3 to represent the array length, onion from index 0, parsley from index 1, and then finally onion, parsley, and carrot as a result of the for loop outputting all the items in the array. Now, let's clear the console and move on to the next file. Here, I'll explore how strings can be iterated over. In this file, I have a variable named greeting with a string value of howdy, along with console logs for the string length and the characters at indexes 0 and 1. And again, I have a for loop that is structurally the same as the previous example. Running this code gives us 5 for the string length, H and O for the 0 and 1 indexes, and then each of the characters of the full string in sequence as an output of the loop. Despite the similar behavior, strings are not arrays. To examine this more closely, let's move on to the next example. Let me clear the output first. In this code, I have the greet variable that stores a string hello and a user variable that stores a string Lisa. Then I run a console log with the string greet and the pop method, which, as you know, removes items from an array. There are 2 other lines of code, but don't worry about them now. I cover them shortly. When I try to run this code, I get an error that says type error greet.pop is not a function. This tells me that I can't run all the array methods on strings. Now, let's run the 2 other lines of code. On the first one, I console log the variable greet, the plus operator, and the variable user. And on the next line, I console log the variable greet and concat method with the variable user. The concat method accepts whatever value I want to concat or join with the greet variable. In this case, both lines of code will work, so they both console log hello Lisa. So I can confirm that the plus operator here, when used on strings, acts as a concatenation operator, meaning it joins strings together. And I also have a method named concat that I can use on a string to add values to whatever string the concat method was run on.